Hi, this is Michael Becker, and in this Tinderbox lesson, we're going to be doing an interview with Bernard, who is a PhD candidate in ancient philosophy down in Brazil. And he has been using Tinderbox to work on his dissertation in ancient Greek and has come up with a number of really interesting strategies and efforts for being able to not only manage those notes, but more importantly, to be able to actually publish his work out of Tinderbox. And he's been leveraging a command line tool called Pandoc, as well as has devised a very unique way of configuring Pandoc command lines through Tinderbox attributes. And so we've asked him to share with us his strategies and techniques on how to be able to publish his work into through Pandocs into LaTeX formats. So I'm going to let him explain all of what all of that means, and we'll guide him through the conversation going from here. So Bernard, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome.
Thanks for having me, Michael. It's a pleasure.
And so if you don't mind, let's just jump right in. So maybe you can share your screen with us. And if you could start with the output. So can you share us like one of your PDF files that is the ultimate goal? So we see here in your screen, you've got a number of Tinderbox notes and a bunch of attributes and all of that. But would you mind flashing up on the screen really quick the output and
Okay. Yeah.
And just like a PDF file, and so we can explain to people like what is it that you're actually doing. So you actually show us one of the outputted files real quick in PDF or whatever format. Okay, so there's an outputted file. So the ultimate goal is you have a bunch of notes in Tinderbox, and leveraging markdown language, leveraging the templates and all of the capabilities of Tinderbox, you go from all of those individual notes to this. So you can
explain what we're seeing? This actually just came out of Tinderbox, and it was converted from Markdown to LaTeX through Pandoc.
Okay, and let's explain some of those things. So Tinderbox is obviously the note-taking tool that we know. LaTeX is what?
LaTeX is a typesetting mechanism that is used by the pretty much every publishing house that you know. They all use LaTeX to typeset different books.
Okay.
It is because with LaTeX you get the absolute best quality when it comes to the layout and typography and so on.
Okay. And Pandoc is what?
Yeah, Pandoc is a sort of universal document converter. It will convert documents from Markdown to HTML to docx to PPTX to LaTeX, and ultimately to PDF or to EPUB.
And if you wouldn't mind, can you scroll up and down a little bit just so people can see? So we've gone from all of our raw notes in Tinderbox into this LaTeX formatted file that's just absolutely beautifully, perfectly laid out, perfectly organized, set up and such. And you're even able to pull in your bibliography and your citations and all of that. And there's so much detail there that's just absolutely wonderful. So can you maybe pop over now to your browser and show us the Pandoc, just so people can see that, the Pandoc webpage?
Yeah, so this is the Pandoc website, and over here is the documentation, which is quite comprehensive, and it is very well documented. But I think perhaps the greatest challenge for someone that has never used Pandoc before, it is actually the command line, because Pandoc does not have a user interface. The only way to interact with the software, it is actually through the command line. And for a lot of people, the commands, the flags, the arguments, all that, it takes a little while to get used to. And what the template is doing, it is actually preparing those commands for you.
And that can be very intimidating if you've never, if you've grown up with PowerPoint and Word and Google Chrome, you're so used to those visuals, playing with the command line can be very intimidating. But and I was that case, a few months ago. But you can learn it. And just for those out there, I mean, essentially, so you're all aware of what's going on. Is the command line is basically the application layer that your computer uses to run the various calls and actions that it performs. And so all of your applications with all of their WYSIWYG and pretty UI, at the end of the day, they're all using command line to tell the computer to do what it wants you to do. Like send something to your printer, or move something to the trash. I mean, that's all happening behind the scenes on your computer using command line. What applications like Pandoc allow you to do is to be able to directly interface with that yourself, rather than having to go through some user interface. Now, if you don't mind, pop over to the documentation and let's the documentation on Pandoc real quick. I just want to demonstrate a couple things to people. We're here. In later demos, we'll show you how to install Pandoc if you so choose and want on your machine. And as you'll see in some of the previous videos I did, specifically the Pandoc to PowerPoint, we actually showed you the terminal window of your computer to demonstrate how that works. But what
I'm sorry, it is actually a good idea to install it from Homebrew, because it will make it very easy to update.
Great, so and I demonstrated that in my PowerPoint demonstration as well, where I showed Homebrew as well. But if you wouldn't mind, just open up a Homebrew tab just so people can see it real quick on your browser. Okay, so what Homebrew is basically is a command line management software. So if you install Homebrew on your Mac, then that will allow you to run the command line more easily on your computer. Then if you go and then you install, and so there's a terminal window where you've got things going on. Then you install your Pandoc, and then you can basically be running these command line applications off your Mac. And we can do more lessons on that later. But if you can go back now to Pandoc really quick for us, what I want to have people show or see is what you were kind of hovering your mouse over. So the basic structure of Pandoc is this. Pandoc, when you call Pandoc, that's telling your Mac, run the application that's underlying on the command line of your computer, the application Pandoc. And then, why don't you explain to us some of these operations that you're passing?
So for any conversion, all you really need is to call up Pandoc. You might sometimes it depends if things are properly set up. If they are, all you have to do is write Pandoc. If not, you might have to add the path to Pandoc previously.
Well, let's assume they're properly set up.
That. Yeah, so let us assume that. And the least you need is a input file, a source file, I should say, and a target file or a output file. And basically, this is our way to tell Pandoc. So Pandoc, I want to output from a output.html to a input.txt. Down here, it's pretty much the same, but now we are telling Pandoc specifically that we want the conversion result to be a standalone file and not just markup language in the terminal window. Because you can actually tell it to convert from HTML to LaTeX, for instance, and it might give you something else. Let's say a result that will run through the terminal window, and it will be the text with the LaTeX markup.
Okay. So and now let's move over to your Tinderbox file. And so essentially what we've explained to all of our listeners now is you've got this software called Pandoc running behind the scenes. And essentially what we want to be able to do is feed that application Pandoc a markdown formatted file, which Bernard has been able to set up and organize in Tinderbox. And all of those -0s, -s's, and the paths to be able to do that properly, he's now going to share that with us. So go ahead and let us know what you're seeing here. So, yeah, and before you get there, actually, can you show us where some of your source notes are? Like where so that's your thesis, right?
Yeah, this is a thesis template, so to speak. So we have a separator with the thesis, which is actually what will become the YOM header. I have a YOM prototype set up, and it will collect all these variables and will just pass it on as a list. So this is the header actually, and we have dedication, acknowledgements, epigraph if you like it, and here I have just some random lorem ipsum notes.
Okay. So in other words, just so people are seeing this, you'll have, as I've demonstrated in some of my other videos, you'll have a lot of notes with a ton of text in it. And notes may have attributes, and those attributes may be pulling values into your body of your text. So all of that, collect, curate, and create processes you're doing in the 4 C's of knowledge management and exchange with Tinderbox are happening in those thesis notes there, as he's showing here. And you're using a markdown template so that it's showing in a pretty font and colors, and you're using CSS to be able to demonstrate that, correct?
Yeah, so this is actually, even if you're not going to export your notes to Pandoc, this is already fun, I think, because I have set up a bunch of CSS files in the code folder, so to speak, down here. So I have a bunch of CSS files. These files, they're not complete. They are being informed by these attributes here.
Okay. Let's pause people right there. So when you say they're not complete, what you're saying, the CSS by itself is not standalone, and you're using you're pulling in attributes to populate variables in the CSS. So can you show us, I see one on the font family line you have right there. Maybe you can show us that.
Yeah, so this is my favorite font. It's called Alegria, but we could use anything. Minion Pro, let us say, if you want to use this one for your final work. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, not for the final work. This is actually for the preview. Yeah. To change the font for the file, actually, we can do that directly from the YOM header. So this is the main font. Font options. All right. These are optional. We have the possibility to set up a main font, a sans serif font.
Let's go back to your CSS file. So essentially, what you're doing, back to the CSS file. So essentially, what you're showing here is by changing that font, if you can mouse over where it says body font value in your CSS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that attribute is pulling in the font. And then that's how it's been using it for the CSS. So that's a way for you to be able to manage the attribute of that CSS element without having to muck around with the code.
Yeah, and you know what's fun? Here we have the CSS. It is pulling the font from the attribute. And actually, if we head over to the preview code, you'll see that I'm also pulling the CSS from a attribute.
Oh, so you're actually getting the name of the CSS from an attribute.
Yeah.
So in other words, that's making your files really clean, and you only have to edit in one place for all of the things to propagate.
Yeah, and you can actually change the CSS you're going to use in the preview right from the first node. And let us say I want to change it to a GitHub-like CSS. There you have it.
That's really cool. So again, a very exciting way to both not only manage the output, but also the visual while you're working too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now that we kind of understand the attribute methods, and so we understand where your source files are coming from, we understand how you're programming the CSS. Now, how do you start setting up the output using the Pandoc configuration? In other words, you were demonstrating to me in the preview of our interview, essentially the next goal here is, so you basically do all your work. You write your notes, you create your CSS to help you make it pretty and stylize the output that you want. But then you need to basically configure that command line for Pandoc to tell it what you want it to do. So can you show us how you go about configuring the command line for Pandoc?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right, Michael. I have the template that we saw. It is working especially for the preview of the notes. And I actually have different preview configuration options. Here, for instance, I have my Pandoc preview one. All I have to do is set it properly up in the sense that I have to choose a markup language that I will be converting from, a markup language that I'll be converting to, and then I can choose a bibliography file in case you have one, in case you are doing the Pandoc conversion with
so
referencing.
Let me stop you right there then. So these are external referenced files that you've created. And if you wouldn't mind, can you pop over to the JSON file just so we can see that really quick? So in his Dropbox file, so this is a JSON file that he created from an export from his bookends. And so he has all of his citations and bookends. He exports that out of bookends and then ends up with a JSON file. And there's steps to make that happen, but we're not going to go over that right now. Maybe that's another lesson we can go through at some other point. But now he has a JSON file that he can have his Pandoc tool refer to. The ultimate goal with this is if you can highlight over that ID Fred 2009B line 15, right?
This is what
he's going to do is in his writing, he would say at the Freddy 2009B as a anchor. Then Pandoc will then, as it's producing the file, scan through and pull the citation and automatically generate the bibliography from this file. So that's what's going on with that. And again, I get there's a lot of moving parts. And he's going to show us, like right down at the bottom on the right. Yeah, there you go. So by him typing that in right there, when he runs the file, Pandoc's going to actually automatically go out and just so you see right there, populate in the bibliography for that particular reference. And that's happening all automatically, which is a pretty exciting thing and an affordance that Tinderbox gives you that a lot of other software programs don't. So that's a really powerful tool. And what are you going to show us now? You scan?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
and I can, when it comes to the preview, you can choose to activate or not the bibliography. And here you have the possibility of pointing it to a file. You can also use a citation style language file, which will basically tell Pandoc how your bibliography should look like. And in this case, I am using a file that I modify myself for the purposes of ancient philosophy. And we can choose a template file. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense here because we are talking about just the internal Tinderbox preview. We are not using these settings to export anything. Okay,
and then you have a number of Boolean checkboxes there.
Yeah, so this is a bunch of Boolean checkboxes, and a table of contents would be helpful just in case you have a really large file. If that's not the case, I would turn it off. Pandoc numbered will number every section of text, every header that appears. And use template is just a quick switch to kill the use of the template in case you have one set up. And the same thing goes for Pandoc bibliography. You might want to leave it set up, but if you need a quick switch, that's the one.
Now, can you do me a favor? Can you pop over to the stamp, I believe, where you had all the code? So essentially, just so people understand what's going on, is the goal here is to generate the command line that Pandoc will use to process the file. And then you'll see here what Bernard has is a stamp if you will, that has a quite a bit of basically action code that he has generated, and let him pick one and show us. Okay, and so that stamp is generating some variables, and so he's pasting it down here in the text right now. And so you see that stamp has created some variables, and you'll notice that, as we showed you earlier in the discussion, by checking that that variable, say bibliography, maybe you can show us that one line where you'll be demonstrating where you'll be inserting in a command that Pandoc will then know to go process the bibliography for that file.
Yeah, so it's bib command. It will check for Pandoc bibliography in case Pandoc bibliography is not true.
Pause it right there, saying if Pandoc bibliography is true, right? So
it will add the command for siteproc and the necessary information that they were already collected. And in case
and what is that necessary information? That is, are those attributes, or what are those?
Yeah, it's the bibliography path, the CSL file path.
Okay, now shouldn't those be $ somethings? Why is it showing the SFL file? Is that just another attribute?
That's actually a variable that was.
Oh yeah, that's the variable that you set earlier. I see. So there you're setting a variable of that is pulling from the attribute.
Yeah.
Including that variable into that command line. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just helping people see what's happening there. So you up above, you've declared some variables. One of those is a CSS file. And then you're now specifying the value of that variable with that line right there. And then at the bib line, you're actually using that variable to construct the bibliography command that will be fed to Pandoc. So there's basically three elements to make that happen.
Yep.
Okay, and that's
and the
one of those.
CSL file, actually, if there is no file, it will just insert nothing. It will just leave it blank.
Right. So essentially, for every one of those variables, that's what all of that code's doing. And so in that regard, it looks complex, but it's really not. It's just a matter of copy and replace.
Yeah, that's precise. And basically, we divide and conquer. So a Pandoc command will have different parts. Perhaps we can take one and analyze it together. Okay, it looks
so
really
let's pause right there. What you did, let's real quick. What did you just do? So you clicked on something, and then you did something, and then that generated. So what did you?
What is happening here is that basically I'm using my string attribute to debug the code when I have to.
Yeah.
And so when I try one of the stamps for exporting the file, if it is a command I'm having troubles with, I will have Tinderbox save the command in my string attribute.
Yeah.
So then I can take a look at it and see if I can find any mistakes.
Okay. And so what we're now looking for, when we go back to when we were looking at the Pandoc documentation, we were looking at a very simplified version of the documentation where it said -s-o and a file name.
Yeah.
And so now if you can go back to your Tinderbox file, we're now seeing that in real life. So that user local bin Pandoc, that's the path to run Pandoc, correct? And that's then correct. -f means what?
From Markdown.
Okay. And then that's telling where, and that's then the next piece is telling us where the file is.
Yes. So we have from Markdown language, and by the way, here's the file. And then we have a flag to indicate that we want a new file as a result. So this is a standalone flag. Then we have a output flag with the $home, which is an abbreviation that we can use, and Pandoc understands it instead of using, the full path to the file.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a siteproc flag to invoke siteproc. Siteproc handles the bibliography.
Yeah,
and then we have
siteproc. Now, is that a Pandoc thing or another application?
Yeah, that's a Pandoc thing.
Okay. Okay.
A CSL file, then the bibliography file, the template file, and then here we have.
And just to pause right there, the CSS file is the format for the bibliography. The bibliography is that JSON file you showed us earlier. And now you have a template.
Yeah. It is not really CSS, but it's CSL.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the template, this one is a template that I adapted from. If you go over to GitHub and just look for LaTeX templates, you'll find different templates. Some of them are very well made, very sophisticated. You might need that. You might need all that sophistication, or perhaps just something simpler. Mm-hmm. You don't have to use a template, by the way. You can just not put that. And Pandoc already has a really nice template by default.
Okay. And then the last command is saying open it once it's been produced.
Yeah. And this is just the last part, telling it to open the file and to reveal it in Finder in case I need it. This is just for convenience. There is no.
Yeah. So essentially,
not really.
So all of those attributes are effectively a means for you to be able to programmatically generate that command line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the Tinderbox is going to do is save a markdown file and then run a terminal command telling Pandoc do this.
Okay. Now, how is Tinderbox saving the file to your hard drive?
It is saving it as a markdown file. I will demonstrate this. Okay.
And maybe we can look at the stamp. Could you actually show us the stamp on the code for that?
Yeah, but first, just let me show you the configuration note, because this is important. It is very important that you, take a look at this before trying to actually convert some file, because you have to pick a folder where you want the converted document to go. And over here, I have just a folder I set up for that. Let me start by going to the folder. Okay, I'm going to erase all this. And then what should we convert to first? Doc,
yeah.
LaTeX?
Do a PDF.
PDF. PDF is a bit problematic because I'm not sure what's happening. The command works perfectly, but Tinderbox for some reason does not. The action does not succeed. But if we
let's go with Doc.
Yeah.
Okay. So you essentially just generated. So what you just did is by hitting that stamp, you've exported the file out onto your hard drive. And Tinderbox processed it in the LaTeX and outlined it for you.
Yeah, for Doc, we don't really need LaTeX. LaTeX is only for PDFs.
Got it. That's a beautiful thing.
You see that the bibliography is here.
Now, is there a way to have the bibliography elements all put all the way at the end? Is that just based on your template?
Yeah, usually that's where it should be, but the problem is Pandoc, it processed the Tinderbox exported the notes individually, so to speak.
So it did it one at a time, and it constructed it one at a time.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense.
And hang on. So let us do another one. So this is the LaTeX export. It comes, ready. All you have to do is typeset it.
And there you go. So what you've been able to demonstrate to us in this interview is really how to take your raw Tinderbox files, apply templates, apply leveraging attributes, CSS, etc. Then, again, using stamps to configure your command line code for Pandoc, export that, and then using Tinderbox to export that code out to your hard drive and process it through Pandoc to create the output you're looking for. Okay, so now can you show us how do you export a file out of Tinderbox? So maybe we can take a quick look at your export stamp.
Yeah. Here is the export stamp for doc files. And yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see. You previously pasted it there. And again, there's a lot of code here, and I don't want people to get distracted on it. Essentially, you're using variables in various fields to pass parameters to create the file. And then down here at the bottom, you're essentially telling Tinderbox, if I can read your code properly, you're running some commands. So you're saying copy, that one saying copy the file to the clipboard. And then
that's precisely what it is doing. Actually, this little line here, I think it was Paul Waters that posted it in some old post. And what I did was just I added this UTF language, UTF-8, just to make sure that diacritical marks, acute and grave accents, that they wouldn't get lost in the process.
And you need that for the Greek, so that's particularly important for you.
And also for Portuguese, we also use accents.
Right. So essentially, then, so you're basically getting the file to the clipboard of your computer, and then you're telling Tinderbox, you're having Tinderbox run a command touch, which, as you just explained, is a standard command at the command line of the computer that says open up a blank file.
Yeah, so touch, it will create a blank file. You can either add an extension or not. But here we are doing this because previously I told it to set the extension to MD, that stands for Markdown. And then later what we are doing is we are basically pasting the plain text, the plain Markdown text, to the new file. And then we are telling Tinderbox to run a Pandoc command that we previously set up. And this last item here, it's only for debugging purposes. It will save the command in the MyString attribute in case someone wants to take a look at it and see if there is anything wrong with it.
And that Pandoc command is, again, that one that you walked us through step by step to show us all of the various pieces. So if we can go back to your Tinderbox file, then in summary, you were saying there's really only 3 things that you really need to know. I mean, let's get, ignoring all of the detail, basically, what do you do?
Yeah, so if you open the template, my suggestion would be to first head over to Pandoc preview, set it up with, necessary information that you might need, like the bibliography file or the CSL file. If you don't have those, don't worry, they're not really necessary. It is just for convenience. And then you can if you set up the files, you can actually kill the bibliography by using the switch. And then you have, a bunch of other options, but basically it is set up from Markdown to HTML. You have 4 other nodes that you can leave, set up with something else in case you want to make experiments later.
And when you mean like, then, from Markdown to LaTeX, from Markdown to PowerPoint or etc. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for this one work for PowerPoint because it is only working within Tinderbox. So it is only working for the preview. And I think the most important are the export files. Okay. And you really need to set up a export folder. But after you've done, the setting up of the Pandoc path, the export folder, and that's the most important. You can also use a doc template for the conversion. Here's the doc file. It is really important to use the, I don't know how to call this, tilde.
Yeah, tilde.
Yeah, tilde slash instead of the user slash username and so on. And then, you have the same options. If you want to kill the bibliography, if you want to kill the template. And well, once that's set up, all you have to do is, test run. Just apply the stamp with the format that you need. So doc. Yeah, that's the file we created.
All right.
Same thing for LaTeX and for PPTX.
Well, Bernard, thank you very much. This has been an exceptional learning, and I think you really demonstrated just the power of the ecosystem of computing and how all of these wonderful tools, from starting with Tinderbox to Pandoc to Homebrew to command line to really, at the end of the day, Word and PDF. I mean, this is how all of these pieces come together for us to be able to professionally publish our knowledge and insights and contribute value to the world. And I think you've done an exceptional job showing us how these pieces can come together. And we're very grateful for you having to taking the time to produce this template and to share it through the Tinderbox forum. So on behalf of everyone, and most particularly myself, I've learned a ton, and I'm just super grateful for what you've done here.
Well, thank you, Michael. Actually, our conversations inspired the making of the template. So thank you, and thank you for making this series of videos. They are really they are helping me to learn what I should have learned in Tinderbox a long time ago. And
I feel that way too. I mean, the only reason why I started the videos is I was forgetting as much as I was learning. And so I realized I should start documenting the learning so I won't forget. And then I realized, well, I might as well just put them out there. And again, I think this is a huge collaborative effort between Mr. Bernstein and Mark Anderson, myself, Paul Walters, Roger Alexander, Tom Diaz, Bruce Gale. I mean, this is a huge family and community that's making all of this come together. And, again, just a lot of gratitude for you and everyone that's making it.
Yes, thank you to every single one of you. Thank you very much.
And to you too. I mean, you're part of the family too. So this is pretty darn awesome. It's a lot of fun. And again, like the PowerPoint video from last week wouldn't have happened without you. So again, it's pretty exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else we're all collectively pull together as Tinderbox 9 and the other features come into play. So pretty exciting.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Bernard, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon, Michael.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the video. I hope you got a lot out of it, and please be sure to like the video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks again. Bye.